Don't give up when the hurt is near you. Don't give up when the world seems to be broken. I'm still hoping with my heart open, hey, for a brighter day.
You just did a gig in North Carolina, was it?
Yeah, last night we were in Asheville, North Carolina, and the day before that we were two days in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we're just moving along. And it's an amazing time to be out on tour right now. We're just super grateful to be able to do it again after not being able to do it for so long. And and then also it's a crazy time that we're living in our country, with the Supreme Court ruling that went down the other day, banning abortion, and, just so many social issues that are on the front burner, everything from, guns and school shootings to us really getting through COVID. Are we actually through it, And so it's a great time to be playing music that speaks to the soul.
Right. So when you're doing a gig like you just did in Nashville, and you just mentioned all these things happening in the periphery, how much does that affect you guys as musicians, and how does it affect the audience?
Well, I always try to select songs for our set that speak to whatever is in my heart at the moment, and also what's going on in the world. And so, fortunately, this new record was written entirely during the pandemic, so all the songs speak to the pain and frustration and fear that we've all had, as well as the optimism and the joy and the silver linings that we discovered along the way that maybe we wouldn't have been able to see had we not been, forced to shut everything down in the ways that we have. And there's this shared experience that people have now. Normally I'd walk out on stage and I'd see, thousands of people out there, and I'd wonder, like, well, what is this person bringing to this, experience tonight? And what's that person bringing? And now I kind of know, well, for the last 2.5 years, we've all gone through a really super challenging time. And you feel that in the audience. You feel people just going, man, we get to do this again. And that feels pretty damn good.
Right. So you're kind of a road dog. I mean, you're on tour all the time. What was it like for you personally? I mean, it must have been.
We've spent, the last 30 plus years on tour for 5 to 7 months of the year. And suddenly it all stopped. I got a call from my manager in early or late March, and she said, of 2020, she said, the show that we have on April 18th to kick off the tour, it's not happening. And we've got to postpone the tour for 30 days. And I was like, 30 days? Are you kidding me? What are we going to do? And very quickly, and within a day or two, we knew, like, no, nothing's going to happen. All the festivals canned and everything got shut down. And so my wife and I, we own a little boutique yoga and music hotel in Bali called Soulshine Bali. And we always thought, well, if music ever totally shuts down, we'll always have the hotel to rely on to, make ends meet. And then no one came to the hotel. So we were,
there you go.
So we were unemployed musician living in a hotel with nobody there. And then my father passed away after a 2-month battle with COVID. And so we had a Zoom funeral, which is very challenging. And I didn't meet him until I was 22 years old. And so I always felt like I missed out on a lot of my childhood with him. And there I was with my 3-year-old. And every day I'd say, what do you want to do at 5 o'clock when I got off work? And he'd say, I want to find a stick. So every day we'd go and find the coolest stick we could in the jungle, and we'd play with it and drag it in the mud and the rice fields, and we'd sharpen it, and we'd roast pineapple and marshmallows with it. And, he'd look at me and he'd go, Dad, why are you crying? And I'd say, because these are the things that I never got to do with my dad. So while the pandemic was super challenging and shut us down in many ways, it opened up this whole world of opportunity, of appreciation, of simplicity, of closeness to family in ways that I hadn't experienced before. And so there was those, silver
Yeah.
linings.
So the album "Follow Your Heart" has a very upbeat, optimistic vibe about it. When
Yeah.
did it start coming together for you? The songs that make up the record.
Well, probably we started working on it last uh, July, and I was just writing a lot of ideas, like little sketches of ideas, and I met this guy named Greg Hansen, who's an incredible producer who I'd never worked with before. And we we went in the studio together and we wrote and we recorded the lead song "Follow Your Heart" the first day we were there together,
Right.
and we were like, man, this sounds really great, let's do more. So he ended up doing most of the rest of the record with me, and it was different because normally we'd be in rooms with like lots of musicians and engineers and
Sure.
different things, but this time it was basically just me and Greg and a laptop, and we'd send things out to a few people and say, hey, can you put a piano thing on this or whatever? But essentially it was just him and I and a laptop and a couple acoustic guitars. And so all the songs were based around, writing with the acoustic guitar. And there's a lot, as you hear, there's a lot of acoustic guitar on the record.
Right. So what it must be? I mean, your sound is very organic. You have a band that you've been with for years, are used to having them around, and suddenly you're thrust into this situation where none of that is happening anymore.
Yeah.
And obviously, you got through it because the record's here. But and you described a little bit about what it's like. I mean, but that must have been more to it than that for you to have to make an adjustment to work like that.
Absolutely. And one of the things was when I finished the record, I then had to go teach it to the band, which is something we never
Right.
done before. And that was awkward for a number of reasons. But you know, this record is really personal to my experience, and my throughout my adult life, I'm somebody who was always prone to uh, depression and anxiety, and having this time, like, it brought it out, or it brought me into some very deep, dark places at times. And at the same time, it gave me an opportunity to work through it, through a lot of it, and find ways of preventing myself from going too deep into it, and learning to reach out to my friends and family. Like you mentioned, my band, Carl Young and I, the bass player in my band, we've been friends for 29 years. Most of that
Hmm.
time we'd just be like, yo, bro, what's up? How's it going? And he'd say, oh, I'm cool. How you doing? And that would be it. Click. We'd end the conversation.
Yep.
And now he'd call me and say, hey, bro, how's it going? I'd say, I'm doing pretty good. And then he'd go, no, I mean, really, like, how are you doing? Tell me about it. Like,
Yeah.
talk to me. What's
Yeah.
going on in your life? And that became a new thing for us. And I feel as a band now, we're closer than we ever have been before on a personal level. And that enables us to be able to approach making the music and working on things at sound check, and making the show that is full of emotion and full of optimism, because we all support each other in that journey.
Right. So you've come through the other side of it. You're back together. You're touring. Everybody's hanging.
Yeah.
But are you a different band? Are you a different musician yourself after this? Do you think?
I feel like I'm a different person in general. I
Uh-huh.
feel such a deep sense of both gratitude and commitment, for making music, and also for making music, and a commitment to making music that helps people get through challenging times.
Hmm.
And every day I'm just trying to think of like ways that I can communicate that to our audience. And this week has been tough. This
Yep.
Supreme
Yeah.
Court ruling, and I'm up there, and my what my gut is telling me is to go off and be just angry,
I
like,
was going to ask you if that was
you know,
an urge
and
that you might have,
yeah,
because yeah,
and then
it's understandable, certainly.
I'm trying to find ways musically, and just do what I say on stage, to be able to speak precisely to what I think and feel, and being mindful that there's others in the audience who might not share my same beliefs, and that I'm not there to try to convince anybody, but I am there to speak up for the rights of women, for human rights, and for what I believe is um, uh, an important virtue for our country, at least, which is the separation of church and state. And so I try to do that as eloquently as possible and do it through song and without blaming other people. So,
Right. It's a tough one.
tough one.
Now, getting to the album, you have a song called "Life Is Amazing,"
Yeah.
which I'm enjoying. Is your son on that?
'Cause life is amazing, then it sucks, then it's amazing again. Life is amazing, then it sucks, then it's amazing again. So don't you worry what tomorrow brings, or yesterday, my friend. Life is amazing, then it sucks, then it's amazing again. And everybody say,
So my oldest child, Cappy, he wrote that song with me, which is super fun. And the lyrics to the song say, "Life is amazing, then it sucks, then it's amazing again." And that's how life is all the time. But it really became super clear during the pandemic of just how quickly
Yep.
you can go from feeling really great to feeling really sucky. And
Yeah.
yet then we come to the other side and we experience things that bring us joy in new ways. And we ask those big questions of ourselves, like, why am I here? And what is the work that I'm doing? And is it contributing to serving the greater good? And can I earn a living by doing that? And but can I take less of a living financially to find more happiness in my life and create more time and opportunity for joy? And every single person on the planet had to ask those questions of themselves, and it wound its way into the music.
Right. So it sounds like, obviously, your son there. Music is a family affair for the Franti family. Do you see building? Is that? Do you see in the future the next generation kind of taking over?
I mean, I want them to do whatever they want to do in their lives, but
Sure.
I
Yeah.
have three sons and they all love music. It's all a big part of their life, and in part because they grew up in my lap on the studio and they grew up on tour buses, and so they know it. But recently, my oldest son, Cappy, he's really thought, like, I kind of want to like turn this into something more serious. And so,
Yeah.
he sends me demos almost every day, and I'm giving him, my feedback on those. And then if I have a song that I'm kind of stuck on, I reach out to him and he comes up with ideas for it. So it is nice to be able to have that connection with my son, and then
Yep.
also with my sons, and then also to feel that the kind of music that I've made throughout my life, which is soul based, and that speaks to things that are happening in the world, and deep questions that people have in their heart and that I have, that it meant something to them, and that
Hmm.
makes me feel a sense of purpose, and it feels good.
Right. Are there any new artists or artists that have caught your attention that are kind of doing that for you these days?
We've got this great band that's out on tour with us now called the New Respects, and
Oh,
they're a young African American rock band that combines like hip hop rock and like old school classic rock. Even they'll take
right.
like Led Zeppelin riffs and incorporate it in what they do, and but they're all great musicians and players, and they have this, again, like this, just this optimism for making music that is uplifting and that still speaks to what's happening in the world.
Right. Right. So the world is a very different place even than when you made or wrote the songs for "Follow Your Heart." Are you thinking about what you're going to come up with next, or songs
Yeah,
percolating?
I'm always writing. You know, Marty, I write my songs from when I'm in my deepest emotions, whether it's joy or whether it's, you know, anger, fear, frustration, whatever. I always write from those deepest places, and right now is a time when there's no shortage of deep emotions for me. And so every day I'll just sing into my phone, and there's an idea for a song, and then later I'll come back and put some chords to it, get together with my bandmates and make something out of it. So it's nonstop for me. And there was a time in my career where I used to take long gaps between writing, and I would
Right.
then say, "Oh, we're going to make a record, and we're going to take like this 3 or 4 or 5 months and try to cram all this energy into it." And I've just found that if I just keep writing all the time, that at the end of each year, I have 10 or 12 songs that are worthy of going on a record and just put them out. So I just don't really stop.
Gotcha. I know you've been a pretty regular visitor to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Seen you at the power station just around the corner here. If so any chance of you getting down here anytime soon?
Yeah. So we're planning on coming down that way in 2023,
Cool.
close to Easter time. And so we're excited to be able to come again. It's been a while,
Yep.
and there's such a great history of music in Aotearoa. Everybody from my friends like Tiki Tani and
Right.
Crowded House, and now you got like what's the band 660, who they got awesome songs.
Thank you very much for taking time to talk to me. Appreciate it.